So again, welcome everybody, and Happy New Year. This is 2014, and this is actually a rerun of a webinar about HP ALM Project Topologies from Ask the QZ Guy series. Okay, so I think we can start with introductions. I'll start with myself. I'm on the right-hand side of the screen. Name is Shir Goldberg. I'm with Ashore, have been in the past with Mercury Interactive, which turned into Mercury, and been in this world for about 15 years. Seen a lot of customers with different setups around a quality center and ALM, and I'm based in the US, and I'm very, very pleased to have with us Olivier. Olivier, go ahead.
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks, Shir, for inviting me, and Happy New Year to you too. Welcome to 2014. I'm actually really excited to be with you today. So I'm Olivier. I work for HP. I actually work for HP IT, so not HP software. I do not work on the ALM product per se. But I have worked for HP, and my role is to equip HP's R&D, research and development and labs, as well as IT teams, so that they can be productive with HP internal software development and testing. So one of the tools that my team provides is ALM for internal HP usage, and as you could guess, we have been really actively using ALM for HP internally, and yeah, thanks. So that's actually those are the numbers that we have been through, and so been using ALM for more than 5 years now, intensively, I would say, globally across HP, and there are around 20,000 active users, 60,000 registered users, with millions of tests and a lot of ALM projects, which vary in size quite a bit. So we have from very small ALM projects to gigantic ALM projects, and I think this is I don't know. Shir invited me basically to talk about all of those projects and how do they work together, and what can we do to make the most out of this ALM topology, and that's what I'm going to cover with you.
Okay, Olivier, would you like to talk about this slide a bit?
Absolutely. So this one slide, even though it looks, I think, really pretty, is also real data. So this is the HP IT landscape. So I was telling you that I'm working for HP IT, and like any company, HP being maybe a little bit bigger than the others, but like any company, we run our company based on applications. So we have applications for payroll systems, we have applications for the supply chain so that we can ship our PCs and printers all over the world. We have applications for, I don't know, recognition, you name it. There are tons of applications. Actually, we have a little bit, around 2,000 applications that we run HP on. And on this picture, the applications are pictured by dots. So each dot that you see is an application. Each color is an organization. So within HP IT, we have multiple organizations. So they are represented by colors there. And the lines, the gray lines that you see, are projects that involve multiple applications. So if you have one line that connects two dots, it means that those two applications, one way or the other, have a common project, and basically the two applications have to share something. So that's our life. I think it's a very complex landscape, but at the same time, it's also very real. That's our real life. We don't have an application there and another application there isolated. We actually have to make those products work together, and we have to collaborate. So between each of the projects that we run, it's very important that there is collaboration enabled, and I think it's very pertinent with the ALM project topology, because if we decide to say, okay, let's create one ALM project per application that we run HP on, then very soon, as you can see by this graph, we'll have troubles because it's going to be very difficult to collaborate on a project that involves multiple applications. So that's actually a real graph that we used, not the graph per se, but the data behind this graph that we used to kind of group the ALM projects, and I think we'll talk again more about that. That's our real life.
Thank you. I mentioned a bit more about Shir, what we do for the ones who don't know. We are the leading provider of products for the HP ALM and quality center customers, and most of what we do is we address the main challenges faced by the customers in areas such as standardization of ALM, meaning fields, values, and so on. Also reporting and analytics, especially cross-project and integration with other systems. Administration challenges and best practices. So this is just in a nutshell. Now what we've done, we collected questions we tried to group them, although many questions cover many topics, and in general this webinar, project topology is a huge area, so unfortunately we cannot dive in to specifics so much, but we'll do our best. So what we've done, we collected questions together and tried to answer them. So the first one, of course, the most interesting is how to decide on the right project topologies. What are the principles, the guiding principles that will lead you to decide on a project topology? Is there something that would, fit everybody? Another thing is when you decide, you might have projects that will last multiple years, and big projects or small projects, there are many aspects to consider. So what we've come with, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. So what we came up with is actually we try to list the factors you need to consider when deciding on project topology. And you could either we've seen customers putting all the eggs in one basket, which actually means one large project for everything, for all the testing in all the organization. And of course there are the other options of multiple projects, and then you need some relations between them. So first of all, the drivers are different. It can be the structure of your business. You might have different business units which are independent. Reporting needs is very important. If you have multiple projects, ALM projects, but you still need a reporting that is across them, that's something you need to consider. Same with integrations. Usability is something we heard a lot from customers. Many times they don't like testers to jump from one to switch projects. It's a pain, especially when you don't have standardization. Asset sharing, is it possible, and how do you actually do it? Share requirements, test cases across projects, security, visibility, performance, archiving, and the list goes on. So there is a lot to consider, and I would say no two customers are the same. I'll go through the HP best practice, and then I'll let Olivier explain how they decided on topology in HP IT. So what you see here is there is an HP best practice paper about project topology, and what you see, the blue project is a repository project. It's the main project that holds the assets, meaning especially test cases and requirements. The other projects are projects that actually take assets from this project and are used for execution. And it could take either from one repository projects or from multiple, as you see in the lower part of the screen. Execution projects, typically, they have a specific lifespan, and after execution is done, they can be archived or deactivated, depends on the organization. Repository projects typically would live longer. Now, we've seen things such as having these two projects inside one ALM project, for example. There are many different setups out there. So that's the best practice. Olivier, if you'd like to explain what you guys did.
Absolutely. So, and I think you said it already. I think there is no one answer. There is no good or perfect answer. We are trying to chase that perfect answer, and I think it's all about compromises. So, and there is one slide that you showed which shows all of the various things that you have to consider when you choose to basically group activities within one ALM project or split them. You know, this webinar is recorded and the slides are going to be available, so feel free to reuse that. But I think it's very important because those are all of the criteria that you need to use to be able to take the best decision. And when I think when I'm talking about compromises, I think we have to stand on the two sides of the fence. So for me, as an ALM, I could consider myself as an ALM administrator. You know, I may be more interested having maybe smaller ALM projects that are easier to maintain with smaller size, so that I can maybe even retire them over time. But the issue with that is for the end users of ALM, the developers and the testers, they will have to navigate across the ALM projects. So you remember the dots and the lines connecting the applications, the HP IT applications? Well, if you have to navigate across multiple ALM projects, log in there, log out, and log back into another project, that's very cumbersome for the users. And not only that, but there is a lot of collaboration, for example, sharing defects, that becomes possible, but still stay possible with mechanisms such as ALM synchronizer, but again, become a little bit more cumbersome. If you go to the end user side, what we found is that, you know, the big dream of all our ALM users is basically to have everything in one single big bag, big ALM project. And but for that, because this way they can collaborate transparently, they can share information and without any barrier. But for that, it's not really about performance that you're going to hit as an issue. But in that case, what we found is that it's all about usability. When you start to have a lot of data and a lot of defects in one repository, a lot of tests, and etc., then it's going to be a little bit harder to find what really matters to you. So it's a balance, and we have to base the balance based on data. So what we end up doing, is to, our guiding principle, which is summarized here, is to have limit the data movement between workspaces. So we call workspace ALM projects. We renamed the project by workspace just because project was a very loaded term. We often refer to a project as a business project, not as an ALM project. And within one ALM project or workspace, there is no data movement. So that was our guiding principle. And you see that you have two kind of groups there. The first one are the projects, the real projects, and there are the business project that you are working on. So you have many of them. So in one ALM workspace, you have many business projects that are time-boxed. They have a beginning and they have an end. And you are going to have requirements, tests, and defects. We call defects CRs. Requirement tests and defects within those business projects. And also at the same time, next to it, in the same ALM workspace, you have applications. Remember the dots that I showed at the beginning? You have applications that also live there. Okay, so usually for one application, one single application, one single product, a printer or PC or software, you have a set of requirements, tests, and defects that are there, and they have to be maintained over time. They have a life on their own over time. But on top of that, you have projects that are going to add additional requirements, tests, and defects, but it's a little bit smaller in scope. So what we did is that we duplicated this structure many times. So you can click one more, and just using the same. Within one ALM workspace, it was easy to collaborate, as you could imagine. But then the thing was to imagine a mechanism to collaborate between ALM workspaces or ALM projects. And what we did for that is that we used ALM libraries, which is a mechanism, embedded mechanism in ALM, which allows you to share requirements and tests not only within ALM workspaces but also across ALM workspaces. So within ALM workspace, you can have a set of requirements and tests, which is called a library, and share that. And across ALM workspaces, you can have the same thing and share that across the ALM workspaces. The one thing that where it starts to be very interesting is that it's the same process for the users, regardless whether they are collaborating within one ALM workspace or across ALM workspaces. So we found that to be quite interesting. So that's essentially how we structured our workspaces. But well, I think there is more data and more questions coming in the next slide, so we can jump to that.
Okay, thanks. We have yeah, so we are getting already questions, Olivier. I think I'll pick a couple of these. First one is, did you use a data modeling tool for ALM in order to decide on, I remember the graph you showed earlier with the dots and the lines connecting. How did you do that?
Well, we use MATLAB.
Okay.
So, which if you have been a student in recent years is not something unknown to anybody, but basically the data is coming from PPM, HP PPM, Portfolio and Project Management. So all of our applications within HP are modeled in CMDB. Or we really use the full panel and full set of HP products. But we were able to correlate the actually business projects that are all available in PPM with the applications that we run, and get basically the project that involve multiple applications. And by this way, we use that to create kind of an affinity graph that showed us okay, between this application and this other application, in the last year, I had one project in common, or two, or three, or four, or five. And that's how we created our workspaces. We kind of, as I said, it's all about compromises. We kind of put the cursor to say, okay, as soon as you have more than 2 projects per year that are in common, or I mean that happen between 2 applications, then that's a signal to you that we need to kind of have those 2 applications be in the same ALM workspace.
Right.
So that's how we did it, and that's how we determined the workspaces.
Okay, and a workspace is actually, it's made of multiple ALM projects. Is that right?
A workspace is one ALM project.
One ALM project. Okay.
It's a workspace equal an ALM project, but again, because project is a very loaded word, yeah, we kind of renamed it and realized renaming is not good, but at some point it was better for our users. Yeah,
we've seen a lot of confusion in the past as well between real projects and ALM projects. Okay, great. So let's move to the next topic, because people are already asking that also right now, which is asset sharing, how to use libraries, and you've already touched on that a bit. So there is a question of what is the best practice to maintain and manage multiple repositories, how to manage that again, and how actually to share assets, and the question was enterprise edition. So let's start going through that. Olivier, if you can start with what you've done in your environment.
Sure. So actually, asset sharing, also known as libraries, is a mechanism that we leverage quite a bit. So with asset sharing, you can just click a couple of times to have the bullets below. So the principle of libraries within ALM is the following. You define a set of requirements and tests that are going to be a library. Actually, you can only select the requirements, and there is a checkbox to okay, give me all of the tests that are also covering those requirements, and this will be a mix of requirements and tests, but you will not have to select the the tests one by one or group by group. You just select the tests that are covering requirements, which I think is very useful. And by defining, there are more assets that you can have in your library. As you can see in these screenshots, there are resources and components. But components are kind of other kind of tests, and resources are resources for test components. But by doing so, you basically create a bucket or a bag of things that you want to share either within one workspace, and you see here that I'm working in workspace 3, so this is an actual screenshot of our workspace number 3. And this bag of assets, this bag of requirements and tests, you want to share it between multiple business projects, and they can be within one ALM workspace or multiple ALM workspaces. So what you do is that you select, you create this library, and then this library can be shared. What you do is that you create something that is called a baseline, which is essentially a snapshot, and you see one baseline is you see the little icon with the book there, which represents a library, and something else, I don't know what it is, in black, and yeah. I think it's a stamp. I'm not sure, but you create a baseline that basically represents a snapshot of your library at any point in time. And what is very nice is that you can, okay, let's say I have an application release 1.1. So I'm going to freeze my requirements and tests, and this is going to be my baseline for 1.1. Let's say that 1.1 patch 2 comes out, and there is a number of changes. Those are the same requirements and tests. Maybe you added a little bit more, but what you do is that you can create a baseline, another baseline for this same library, and you can reconcile the requirements and the tests. Basically, if you share a set of requirements, a library between two ALM projects, you will be able to say, okay, I'm going only to take the library for application release 1.1. Now you have another test campaign that comes out, and you want to take the requirements and tests that belong to application release 1.2 or another version. And what you can do is that you reconcile those differences, and you will be able to see and very clearly there is a comparison tool that shows you, okay, all these requirements have changed from 1.1 to 1.2. Now I need to maybe think about the way I'm going to test differently, or maybe not, right? But there is the library mechanism also allows you to control what you take and what you do not take when you want to create a release. So that's a nice way to control the requirement changes and reconciliate if you want to do it this way. You are not obliged to do that, but that's a capability that is offered to you. So yeah, we use libraries. As I said, they can be used within one ALM project or across ALM projects. Even though, sure, I think you mentioned that it depends on the ALM edition.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I believe it does. Yeah. So there was a question, you're right, about doing that with ALM Enterprise, and I believe it works inside one ALM project in Enterprise, but not cross-project.
Okay. And I'm sorry I cannot answer that question because basically I have a wild card as far as I see this goes.
Okay, I'll actually go into, we talk about libraries because that's something that will influence your topology. It makes it possible to share items, so it will enable you to have multiple projects. And again, this is from based on our experience in HP best practices. A repository, what it contains, it's ALM repository project. It's requirement test cases and also business components. Now, these are normally long life cycle ALM projects, and what we do is we share the assets to ALM execution project. And I'm not going to repeat what Olivier said, but essentially you share what you want, and you have baselines which are actually snapshots in time. And another nice thing that you could do is you can share it back, and if you make changes, you can update it back to the repository project. It's a bit tricky. You need to play around with it a bit to see how it works, but it is definitely possible. All right. Let's go to the next question, reporting. That's another aspect which is very important. If you have multiple projects, you probably need visibility across them, and the questions are reflecting that. We have cross-project reporting, how to do it, how to get projects to be merged in one report, reporting strategies for multiple projects again, and so on. Okay. So Olivier, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And reporting is a big topic, right? I mean, it's no use at all. I mean, testing and developing, all of that is all about making something available to your customers. And to make something available to your customers, what you need is some level of information to be able to decide whether or not you are ready to ship the product out of the door. And then it's a decision, if you want to have like 80% good quality or 100% or 99, you name it. But so it's all about reporting. I mean, without the reporting, it's all of the efforts of using tools such as ALM and others becomes completely void. So reporting is extremely key, and without reporting, you cannot move forward. Now, for us, when we decided, okay, after 3 years of ALM, we found out that basically we had reporting requests from a lot of people, and it was very hard to be able to kind of accommodate all of the requests. And so what we did first is that we modeled all of the entities, and this is what you see there. We modeled all of the entities that we had to work with for software development, and try to basically draw the relations between those entities. This gives us some kind of a traceability map, which you see there, and then from there you can decide what to report and how to report, and because depending on where those entities are stored, they may not be stored in ALM all over the place. Actually, we have, for example, user stories that you see on the left side, which are coming from HP ALM Manager. And you have to accommodate that as well. So and obviously binaries are not stored in ALM either. So how do you accommodate traceability between all of the entities? But we first started to accommodate and look at accommodating the ALM native reporting capabilities, and we had to say that it was working relatively well for a period of time. But because I think it's unique of our scale, we also had issues with not with scalability but with performance, because when you do reporting and you start to report on data that is relatively big, your ALM performance, because it's sharing the same database, is going to be impacted. So we had to work and rethink the process a little bit, and that's how we ended up reinventing our reporting a little bit. The state we are right now is that we ended up shadowing our main database. So we have the core ALM database that is used by the ALM itself, which is used to serve the end users for normal ALM usage, I'd say. And next to that, we have a shadow, which is leveraging the native database mechanism. It has nothing to do with ALM, but we have a shadow of the database that is, I think, 5 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes behind the actual live ALM database. That on top of which we created our own reporting infrastructure, which allows us to do reporting on top of the ALM data without hurting ALM performances. Okay, so that's what we ended up doing. I think as far as also reporting, if I look at the various questions that were there before, how would we do cross-project reporting? And I think there is already a set of capabilities within ALM. It may work for you. But for us, again, we had to stand up something in addition on top of that. Again, using the OTA API is fine. I mean, we actually have been doing that for a long period of time, and it may work just fine for depending on the size of your ALM deployment. But I see that the question is all about, well, it takes a long time to do that. And again, I share the same conclusion. So what we ended up doing is do, another kind of infrastructure dedicated to reporting. And also, last but not least, Shir, before I give you the floor back,
sure.
is that reporting is not about ALM only. So you need to have composite reporting. You need to be able to put in perspective the applications and the project, which may be stored in, I don't know, for us it's PPM and CMDB, but for you it may be something else, Microsoft project or something else, and put that in perspective with the rest of the data, with ALM, but not only ALM data. It's composite reporting, and for that you have to have something that is the base for your reporting infrastructure, where ALM becomes one source, which is extremely important, but may not be the only one. Yeah, so that's, well, reporting, this is one of my favorite topics, so maybe I'm going to give you the floor back, Shir.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, so I'll first speak about what ALM offers. So ALM offers cross-project graphs and also business views, which enable you to do cross-project, gives you cross-project visibility. However, this is quite limited, both in the number of ALM projects you could work with and what it actually gives you. And for most customers, it's not enough. What we see is customers implementing customized solutions, and Olivier described what they've done. Many have their own reports, and they pull from multiple ALM projects. Now, the way to go is have a dedicated reporting platform, which is sitting, aside to HP ALM. Performance issues can be really bad when you do reporting on the ALM actual database. It can really bring it to its knees. We've seen it multiple times, and there are many ways to create such a reporting solution. It's doing it in a BI manner. Business intelligence is probably the best, and but it does require quite a lot of effort. Now, as in Azure, we do specialize in this area. And I'll take the opportunity to just talk about one of our products called Azure TotalView, which actually provides you that extremely fast and pretty much out of the box. And it is the main data source is HP ALM, but of course it can capture data from other systems as well. Okay, I will not go into all of the information here, but if it does look interesting to you, make sure you ping us later. Okay, we have multiple questions about, actually there is one question about reporting just came in, Olivier. I think maybe you guys have done it. How do you integrate PPM data with ALM data, with HP ALM data?
Yeah, so we have a reporting front end that we use. So we kind of, it's a very standard reporting. I mean, if you ask a reporting specialist, they're going to come up with that kind of infrastructure. But basically, we load the data in one reporting database, and one source is ALM, and another source is PPM. And that's the reporting front end that takes care of actually displaying the data. But there is a correlation. So, between the various data sources, you have to find the key that you can link the data with. And for example, with one very important field that we have in ALM, it's called the PPM ID. So this is the project ID. And that's the field that, well, that's the value that we use to link the data in PPM and the data in ALM. So,
okay.
Well, that's the way we do it.
Yeah, I definitely support that. We've seen it, same thing, for example, when customers ask us to integrate the information from ALM, which goes into our TotalView solution with, for example, Clarity. which is a competitor of PPM. It's exactly the same thing. You have to, first of all, you have to analyze the data in both systems, find the key you can join it on, and then make sure the values are in both systems so you can bring it together. There is actually one more question just came in about if there's a way to use the ALM REST API for reporting. You know, yeah, you could do that, but again, I don't recommend that. It's you definitely load the ALM server, the database, because every query you do, it goes to the backend.
So what a great question. So let me give you some stories about that
Sure.
from real life. So it's technically it's definitely possible. It will actually work. We find that it's actually it's lightweight. So it depends first on the ALM version you're talking about. So the backend REST API implementation has changed over the years, obviously, and between ALM 11 and 11.5 and 11.5 last service pack is not the same. So and I tend to believe that it's some of the feedback that we provided HP Software R&D that led to improvements, but depending which version of ALM. But we found that, for example, listing, a list of defects, so getting all of the defects with all of the fields is a very lightweight operation. If you start to do things that not only give the defects, but also are going to also get the history and do, things like that with volume of data, with actually hundreds of thousands of defects with a history of 4 or 5 years of kind of automated changes, then you're going to start hitting issues as far as performance is. Now, how do you find that out? Because that's always the big issue, because the user comes back to us and say, well, I did a query, it worked fine, and then it doesn't work, and ALM goes down. Ooh, yeah, but it's very hard to find why, because the volume of things that are happening on the server is extremely big. What I would recommend there is to have a look at QC Sense, because QC Sense, which is a feature that you can look at, so it's in your user guide, gives you the ability to track the time it takes for each of the REST queries that your users do issue. So actually, you're going to be able to pinpoint performance issues and see if they're coming from REST queries or others, and find that out by QC Sense, with QC Sense. So one piece of advice there is that you may want to look if first it's going to work, yes, REST for reporting. 2, it may work depending on the query, so that's the dangerous things to do, but that may be possible and be harmless for you. But if you start hitting issues, look at QC Sense. It's going to give you what's going on.
Okay, great, thanks. I think we can move to the next one. That's also an interesting thing. It's the whole area of how to split or merge projects. Now this applies to, if you have a current topology, you want to move to a different one. For example, you have one large project, you want to break it down to pieces. Or you have a project which is ongoing, but you want to archive parts of the execution once in a while to keep the size under control. And that also relates to that. So the kind of question we got here is, how can you merge projects and retain the execution statuses and other artifacts? How to purge data from projects that are reused over multiple years, and yeah, it's it kind of repeats itself. We also got quite a few questions about merging. Yeah, so Olivier, you want to?
Yeah, so actually it's a question that, those are questions that are very related to the project topology, because once, okay, you decide on the new project topology, the next question is, okay, how do we get there? and you think about merging, splitting, and maybe archiving. So I think in your next slide there is a couple of options that you have listed. They are all very valid. Maybe I'll share my experience with all of them. So the first one is copy-paste. So copy-paste works, meaning that you have to open one ALM window, two ALM windows, one with one ALM project and another one with another ALM project, and basically select the structure that you want, copy, and go to the destination and paste. Easy. Now, it works only if the fields between the source and the destination projects are similar. Well, similar, they can be similar to multiple levels, but if you really need to transport all of the data from source to destination, the fields and the list of values in the list and things like that really do have to be the same. Otherwise, you're going to lose a little bit of data there. So it works, but it works for simple cases for us, and or it works if the project data model, so the fields and the list of values are, if not exactly the same, at least the same for the values that you want to preserve between the source and the destination. And for that, there are things that helps you doing that, and I think Shir is going to talk about it. The other way to split or to merge is to use libraries. So what you can do is use a one-time library that you define. And the good thing about using a library is that you are not, for example, if you use copy-paste, you can select requirement tree and click copy, and it will copy your requirement tree. However, if you have tests that are covering those requirements, they are not going to move over, and you are going to lose the test and the traceability between the requirements and the test. With libraries, you preserve that. So you preserve the test and the requirements, the structure, and also the fact that they are linked, and that requirements are covering tests. So that's an interesting property that you may want to use. And I think the ultimate solution is not ultimate maybe, but is to create your own. ALM has an API called OTA. You can create your own OTA scripts that are going to do exactly what you want. It's going to work. We have done that a couple of times, but it's obviously a development effort. So it's something that is a little bit cumbersome, but at least allows you always to achieve that kind of activities. So I think that, well, all I have to, this is all what we have used within HP, but I think we moved very often to advanced OTA scripts.
Yeah, we've seen it the same way. That's especially, there is no other way to do it if you want to maintain the test execution results and the links between entities, for example, to defects and so on. So this is tricky to do. And actually, just the only thing I can add here, Olivier, to what you said, is that actually we have a service for that in Azure. Because we have done all the development work for these tools, and we could help customers split and merge projects while maintaining all the run results and the links between the entities. Now, especially merging and copy paste, that brings us to the next topic, which is standardization. And standardization is a very large topic by itself. It relates very strongly to topology, because if you are standardized, you will have much more options to, more flexibility when you decide on topology. And standardization covers fields and also the values inside those fields. And these are the sort of questions we've been getting from you guys. For example, suggest how to enforce standard project topology. Large number of users, everybody doing their own thing. Another one, if there is no template and there are multiple projects already created, how to get those projects streamlined by a template defined later in the process. I think this situation is very common out there. The last one is essentially the same question. So yeah, Olivier, all yours.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I mean, just click on this one thing. But I think harmonization is very important. But you don't harmonize. I don't know what I mean by harmonizing is having the same data model, the same fields, and the same list of values across the ALM project. And you don't really harmonize just for the fun of it, because that's a process that is involved. I mean, there is a lot of negotiation that needs to happen first with your business partners to do that, but also in terms of tooling, it's not something that is trivial. So you don't do that just for the fun or for the being happy with something that is super aligned and harmonized. You do that because there is a need. And very often what we have seen is that the need is around reporting. So, for example, if you have one project that has declared that the defect severity that is urgent is called urgent, and the other one is like called red, then between urgent and red, you are going to have an issue, because the reporting will have to be custom to be able to accommodate those two ALM projects, and that's going to be an issue for you. So, reporting is a very is a big driver for harmonization, and especially if you have projects and products that have to be, well, again, products that have to collaborate with each other and that are not isolated. So at HPIT, we use ALM cross-project customization. First, it was not existing when we started with ALM. Since then, we have moved. We created a few ALM templates. There is one that we call HP Core, and that's our own personal template. I'm not going to share that, but it's basically a customization that we use and which we have been moving projects and attached projects to. And this is something that took us a lot of time. Actually, I think we still have some projects that are not what we call harmonized. But that's something that allows us to not only to have reporting that makes sense, because all of the fields and the values are the same, even though there is a degree of freedom, which I think is very important. But the core fields, like the severity of a defect, are the same, which allow our customers, our business partners, to be able to report on things and compare orange with oranges. So, and for that we use Project Harmonizer from Shir. Actually, we wanted to do it ourselves, but well, we quickly decided that it was not worth the effort. So we have been using that, and I would say that for reporting, I think we talked about it quite a bit, but it's the fields and the list of values need to be the same on the things that you want to report on, and again, for reporting, you really need to have something that is solid. All of the issues that I have, the biggest issues that I had with ALM over the years, were all because of reporting issues. I mean, I can go back and look at the logs of events that happened, and I can almost guarantee that 90% of them have been because of reporting issues and load generated by the system. So it's actually important to get reporting right.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go to the next slide. Actually, we're gonna have a standardization webinar. I don't have the exact schedule yet, but probably within the next couple of months, because standardization is very much central. It just enables so many things. I think the most important is probably reporting, because if your projects have the same structure, the same value, meaning same fields and same values, you can actually report cross-project easily. Administration is much easier. Asset sharing is possible. By the way, it is difficult to do if you're not standardized. I already spoke about topology and integrations as well. It's very easy to do across multiple projects if you have the same fields in the same places. Now, standardization really increases efficiency. We had one of our customers talking in HP Discover, and they managed to bring their ALM to what they call the state-of-the-art ALM. And really a cornerstone of that was standardization. And they claimed that the testing efficiency increased by about 20%, which is a huge number. Just because all the projects were the same, it was so easy for testers to move from one project to the other and continue working as they're used to. Okay, so that's around standardization. Now, I must mention we have Assure this has been our core area for a long time. Our first product was in this area, and we have two products that make a suite. One of them is the Project Harmonizer to standardize the fields or the user-defined fields in all your projects with an ALM project template. It's easy to do. You can delegate the work in large environments, and it works. That's the tool Olivier was mentioning they've been using. The other one is the Assure Data Standardizer, which helps you standardize the data, meaning, as the example again was, say you have urgent versus red, and you decide that all the projects should use urgent. This tool will help you do that easily. It also helps you see any data which is inconsistent. For example, empty values in required fields, tester values, tester name, which are no longer in the project. For example, think about you have defects assigned to somebody who's no longer in the project. So this tool would detect it and help you solve it easily. Okay, but as I mentioned, we'll have another webinar around this area. Okay, so let's see how much time we have left. Not too long. We'll take a look at the questions in a minute. But just to summarize, we only had 1 hour, and really deciding on a project topology is really complex. It involves many factors, and there is this one slide with a list of factors that you should probably go back to. We'll send you the material and the recording after the webinar. The topology decision has really big impact going forwards. I mean, you make a decision and it will impact you for really years to come. Because moving from one topology to another is quite an effort. Some of the ALM advanced features, such as template projects and libraries for asset sharing, they definitely offer more flexibility. So spend some time to learn these, to see how they work, and what is the most value you can get from there. And you can look for partner solutions also around these areas that could definitely help you. So Assure and topology, I've mentioned two main areas. One of them is Total View for reporting cross-project, and the other one is the standardization suite, which I just spoke about. And we can really help you select the right topology, and we also have the technology to support this decision and actually make it happen. Now I'll take a look at the questions, and let's see what we can answer from that. Yeah, Olivier, I'm not sure if you guys have done anything like that. There is a question about the reporting. The app is in the center of the reporting, and there is also a service manager. I believe it's service manager tickets, and when these tickets are closed, right? How do you actually link it back to HP ALM? Have you faced something like that?
Well, within HPIT, yes. It's a great question. So actually, our reporting infrastructure went live not too long ago, and I know this is exactly a use case that people have been looking at within HPIT. What we have been doing so far is that we do not trace, although there may be teams that do that internally, but we do not trace systematically the tickets back to the applications, I would say, in terms of reporting. What we do, however, is that, again, we have this unique key and the correlation ID between, you remember there are the dots there, and there are applications, and each application has one unique ID, which we call the EPR ID. And so we can very easily relate all of the tickets that are opened or closed against an application ID, an EPR ID, and relate that with the development activities. So I don't know, I have not the visibility of what people have been doing for reporting, but the reporting infrastructure allows us to do that. Again, the key there will be the EPR ID. We essentially have two keys that we use. If you look at ALM, we have the project ID, the PPM ID, because we use PPM for our projects. And we have the EPR ID, which is used in UCMDB to identify the applications and relate the tickets to, and relate also the development activities to. And also the same for reporting, for monitoring, sorry. When we do monitoring using, well, again, HP tools like Scope and BSM, when we do monitoring, they monitor against our applications, and it's all the key is always the what you call the EPR ID, so the application ID. So we have the teams have the ability to do the reporting across all of those dimensions.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's see, we have one question from somebody who has a large project which is 29 gigabyte in size and it has a slow performance. And the question is, what's the recommended largest project size?
So that's a great question, and I'm sure, I don't know if you have worked with HP support on this one, but what I found is that, so definitely there are questions with the size. And if we look at the size of an ALM project, usually it's all about the test results that become extremely large, as well as the history that becomes extremely large. And when you start to, depending on what users are doing, for example, if they have filters when they display their defects, or that display test results that are based on tables that are very, very big, then ALM, may become slow, because like any other database-based solution. So there are two things that help. First, there is the purging mechanism. So you need to have a purge mechanism in place, and we talked about that a little bit. That does help. The other thing that helps is to really understand what's wrong, what's causing the issue, because we found in many occasions is that it was one specific use case that was causing the issue. We use QC Sense, because QC Sense will tell you, really, you put this project under monitoring for, let's say, a day. Usually a day is enough. And you will really see what's taking a lot of time and what are the things that can be optimized. So what I could recommend is maybe you work with either support or maybe with folks like Shir to look at that. But QC Sense is the monitoring that you want to look at to have data to be able to pinpoint on the issue. But we have not decided on limits, because so far what we found is that all of the limitations are specific to a given use case, and we have always been able to kind of alleviate the use case, the problem, either by purging or by close monitoring and fix the issue.
Okay, great. All right, so we are out of time, and hopefully this webinar was useful to you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olivier. And please fill in the survey that will pop up after you leave, and we'll provide a recording to everybody who has registered. So thanks a lot again, and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.